The preferences in Cinema 4D allow you to customize the application to change a variety of properties. Everything from the color of the interface to how objects are imported and exported can be controlled here. Now, the Preferences screen is one of the deepest in the whole application, and for the sake of time, rather than walk through everything, I'm going to cover just the ones I think are most important for everyday use. So here in the interface, under the main menu bar, under the Edit menu, at the very bottom is Preferences, and I can hit Command or Control E on the keyboard to get there as well. Now, when I let go of that, I get the Preferences window. Now, it's divided into two sections. On the left-hand side, we have the categories of preferences. On the right-hand side, we'll have the contents of those categories. So right now, I'm on the interface category. You see it's highlighted gold here. And I can change things about my interface here. I only have the English language installed, but you can work in a wide variety of languages inside the interface. The scheme allows me to change the color of the interface. Right now it's defaulted to the dark interface, which I actually prefer, but I'll show you what the light one looks like. I'll click on the pull down here and go to light. And you can see it switched the color of the menus and palettes. I don't like this layout. It's a little bit hard on the eye, especially when you're going to be looking at the application for a long amount of time. So I'm going to switch this back to dark. Next up on the important preferences are the input devices. And if I click on that, here's where I can control a little bit about how my mouse moves inside the viewport, but also I can control the orbit. If you're coming from an application like 3D Studio Max, the orbit is reversed in Max, and so you can reverse that orbit here by clicking on this icon right here. And that will make the behavior a little bit more comfortable for you, depending on what you're used to. Now I'm going to leave mine alone because I like the way Cinema 4D orbits just as it is. Now the Files options allow us to control where Cinema 4D looks for textures. Now by default, Cinema 4D looks in some very specific places. If you're working on a network or working with other artists in the studio, you can all share assets from a single location and input that location here in the Texture Paths field. Also in here is the autosave option, and you can activate that autosave and tell it where to save the files to. By default, it will save it to the project directory. Now, I normally leave autosave off. That's because I'm a very habitual saver. I actually have my hand over the Command and S keys at all times when I'm working, just out of lots of years of getting burned by not saving. So I normally leave autosave off, but feel free to turn it on if you want to. So I'm just going to turn that off right now. Next up are the units, and the units in 3D space really are arbitrary. A cube can be 200 units on a side, but those units could be miles or they could be millimeters. It really doesn't matter. It's all about your perception of the scene. And so, for example, if you're an architect, you may want to work in real-world values so that you're working in feet or inches or millimeters or centimeters. It's really all up to you. I normally leave it alone. I don't even pay attention to what those values are, unless, of course, I am going to be passing something off to someone I know cares about it. Most of the time, I just ignore it and leave them on the default value of centimeters. The animation unit defaults to frames, but you can also change it to seconds or simply timecode. I always work in frames, and so I leave this value alone. You can also decide what sort of color picker you'd like to use. Cinema 4D by default works in RGB values. It does not work in CMYK at all, so it works in either RGB or HSV, and you can change that value here. I normally work in RGB. I'll leave that alone. You can also decide what sort of color picker you want to use. The Cinema 4D color picker is on by default, but you can use the system color picker if you want to. Next up are the import-export options, and when I click on that, you see I get nothing on the right-hand side here. That's because there's a black triangle next to that, and anytime you see a black triangle, that indicates that there's additional values underneath that. So if I click on this black triangle, I can see all these import options. And Cinema 4D is a very friendly application, and it works really well with other apps. And so there's a wide variety of options that you can choose from here. For example, if you need to send something to a Maya artist, you can save it out in an FBX file format that is very friendly with how Maya works. And the same thing holds true for 3D Studio. So you can really have a lot of flexibility. You can import files from those applications as well. The Preferences window can be daunting, but the most important rule is don't change anything unless you understand what it does. And if you do change something, make a very careful note of what the original value was so you can always get back to it.